Happy 128th birthday to the amazing Oscar-winning director Frank Capra. I thought as a special birthday salute to him, what do you say we take a look at the special 100 Years of Columbia Pictures Frank Capra Blu-ray and 4K box set that came out earlier this year. I've had this set for a while. I thought, you know what, be a perfect thing to unbox today to celebrate this director's amazing career and the wonderful films that he's made. We've talked about a few of his films on this channel before, of course, notably his two Best Picture winners, It Happened One Night and You Can't Take It With You, both of which included on this set. But Capra directed many other films. I should note that this box set only includes movies he made for Columbia Pictures, so don't expect to see classics like It's a Wonderful Life, a favorite for every Christmas, of course. Don't expect to see my favorite, Arsenic and Old Lace. And you won't find too many of his later films after sort of mainstream success started to elude him. A lot of these movies are kind of basically forgotten today. Here's State of the Union on VHS. Some of them are remembered for certain aspects, certain actors or actresses, or certain songs. Such as here, A Hole in the Head, which gave us the ever-popular song High Hopes. Something similar with the Bing Crosby vehicle, Here Comes the Groom. That's only remembered for giving us In the Cool, Cool, Cool of the Evening. But Capra had an amazing career. All sorts of incredible films. And I thought today would be the perfect day to go through and see what all this box set holds. And please comment some of your favorite Capra films below. And let's take a look at the packaging and sort of the product design of this huge Blu-ray set. Released in late 2024, this Frank Capra box set is from the same 100 Years of Columbia series as the Three Stooges Blu-ray box set is, which I unboxed and discussed in a previous video. You can check that out if you would like. So I thought this will make an interesting companion video to that one. So the Frank Capra set, like the Stooges one, has sort of a cardboard flap glued onto the bottom that once you remove the shrink wrap, it's mostly detached. I'll show you what it looks like on the back there if you'd like to see it. List of all the films. You can pause that if you want to look at it closer. Once you remove the shrink wrap, that panel comes down. You can see a small movie poster for each of the films included. And again, you can pause that if you want to take a closer look at one of those posters. Now this box set is predominantly Blu-ray, but it also features 4K ultra high def stuff as well. To get to the movies, open up the little doors on the front, and they kind of slide backwards into the box. And you can see all of our films positioned right here. The cases with the blue tops are Blu-ray only. The cases with the black tops are Blu-ray on one disc and then a 4K disc, a UHD disc with the other. So keep that in mind. Even if you can't support ultra high def kind of stuff, you can certainly have a Blu-ray copy of each of those movies. Again, you can pause it. We're going to unbox this here in just a second, take a closer look at everything. But certainly a wide array of films on different styles. You notice a couple R&D double features. We'll get more into that in just a moment. But a pretty smart box. Notice it is designed kind of on an angle, so it would sit like this, and you would kind of pull movies out that way. Very interesting to do an angled set like that. And there's no accompanying booklet or anything like that either. I mean, we do get, I suppose, the info on the back side, but no Capra books. So, pretty wide array, pretty interesting stuff there. Nothing really on the bottom. Let's take a look at the movies included in this set. Really, the only major flaw with this set is a slight packaging issue. I don't know if it'll show up on camera, but there is no little divot or no little finger hold where you could put your hand and kind of pull out individual Blu-ray cases easily. It's very frustrating when I'm looking to take just one out of the package. Indeed, the best way to sort of unload this box is to tip it forward, and as they all slide out, kind of pull out several till you can get the one you need. It's very frustrating, and I kind of wish they'd added that into the top. So to make this discussion a little bit easier, I figured I'd just take all of the discs out, put them back in as I reviewed them. Now, even though this came out at the end of last year, I didn't buy mine until March of 2025, so I haven't watched everything in here yet, but nonetheless I'll go through and discuss as much as I can, give you some idea if you'd want to save up and purchase this set or not. So keep in mind this is not Frank Capra's entire career. Indeed, he actually started directing comedy films for Harry Langdon, who was a big comic star in the silent film days, and he'd later go on to appear in a lot of Hal Roach films like Zenobia with Oliver Hardy and Misbehaving Husbands and things like that. So those, of course, were Harry Langdon productions, are not included here. Also bear in mind that Capra has several lost films like Say It with Sables, and those aren't here either, and at least I haven't been able to find any sort of reconstructions or anything like that. We'll talk about reconstructed films a bit later. So we kick off 1928, one I haven't got to yet, so this is Love. Show you the back. Johnny Walker also featured in another kind of early silent hit for Capra, a little film called The Matinee Idol. That one's not included here, but this one is. The Matinee Idol, he plays a black-faced comedian who falls in love with a girl. I don't doubt that was removed due to some of the politically incorrect tones, you know, that we don't really appreciate in films today. So I'm sure that one was omitted on purpose, but it's good we have at least one of his Capra films here. Next one up, another one I haven't got to yet, The Way of the Strong, with Mitchell Lewis. Mitchell Lewis was in all kinds of films back in the 30s, so I'm really excited to watch this one and see him in kind of the leading role. And up next, That Certain Thing. Capra, of course, did lots and lots of comedies. Haven't got to this one yet either. And for all the Blu-ray releases here, I guess I should open each one up. Disc does have artwork, none of them have booklets or anything like that. Alright, we get to one that I have seen, and one that I was very excited to watch. This was probably one of the main sort of movies I was looking forward to in this set. Submarine, the action drama. Jack Holt and Ralph Graves both made several films for Capra, and Submarine is pretty impressive. It's predictable in the sense that it's two men, both of whom very macho, both of whom involved in the military, fighting over the love of a woman who it turns out is not really in love with either of them. She's more in love with the uniform, but nonetheless, Submarine has some very, very impressive special effects work. A lot of underwater filming. You can imagine going under the sea in those enormous old-fashioned diving helmets and those giant suits and things like that. But it works pretty well as an action drama. Has a lot of the predictable tropes we associate with service dramas even up through today. For example, there has to be a bar fight between two different branches of the military, in this case the Marines and the Navy sailors fighting each other, that kind of thing. But I was really impressed with Submarine. And Submarine was made near the end of the silent era, so it does have some sound effects and things like that. The songs featured in the film are actually sung. It's not a sound film, but it was done with like a pre-recorded synchronized soundtrack. Another one I was curious to watch, and did watch indeed, was The Younger Generation, Capra's first sort of de facto talkie. Now granted, it falls more along the lines of something like Lonesome or The Jazz Singer, in that the sound is used pretty sparingly, only for a few scenes. It's not really a full talkie. There's still quite a bit in terms of title cards and stuff, but The Younger Generation being a class drama, Ricardo Cortez as the son who wants to be high class and gradually comes to shun his family, and, you know, Jean Hersholt, who the award is named after from the Academy of Motion Picture Arts and Sciences, is the father who's just so out of touch with his son and tries to keep his daughter in the fold, but she doesn't want to be a prisoner. Very much kind of a family drama sort of thing, and it was a good film, though. I liked it a lot. I'll open it for you there. Let's see again. 2 discs, 4K, and Blu-ray. Something from around this time that was not included in the set is his film Power of the Press with Douglas Fairbanks. As far as I know, that one has never been made legitimately available on home media, but I think you can find gray market releases for it. I should say Douglas Fairbanks Jr. to be specific. So hopefully someday that will be widely released. Our first of the double features. This time we have Flight, paired with Ladies of Leisure. Ladies of Leisure has an amazing performance by Barbara Stanwyck, and Barbara Stanwyck would be kind of a regular for Capra at this point. She was in several of the movies we're going to discuss today. Of course, Barbara Stanwyck's great in anything. Flight, reteaming Jack Holt and Ralph Graves. Haven't watched Flight yet. I'm sure it'll be pretty good. Ladies of Leisure I like. It's definitely a melodrama. But again, you can't go wrong with Barbara Stanwyck. Rain or Shine. Apparently this was filmed as a musical and all the musical numbers were cut out. Haven't got to this one yet. Musicals had fallen out of favor, of course, by about 1930, 1931, unlike the early sound era where they were quite prevalent. Most of the bonus features on here are things like commentaries, but this one actually has a couple different edits, so I'm curious to kind of get into that and see what the differences were. Another one I'm excited to see, Dirigible, and you can tell from the back there the crashed Polar Expedition plane. I'll bet you this one will be a pretty fun thriller, this time in the air with giant airships and zeppelins and things. Also, Jack Holt and Ralph Graves teamed up with Fay Wray, of course, from King Kong. My Easter movie for this year was this one, The Miracle Woman. I was very curious to see it. Back to Barbara Stanwyck again, only this time, instead of playing sort of an escort, she ends up becoming a sham, faith healer, not televangelist, more like radio evangelist, that kind of thing. And Sam Hardy, also from King Kong, pops up as her manager. He doesn't care anything about the religious angle, he's just in it for the money, and finds very quickly that, a good religious scam can milk a lot of money out of people. So, pretty interesting stuff, based on a popular lady evangelist who did radio and public appearances of the time. I forget her name. If you remember, please comment it below. But kind of cynical, not quite what you'd expect, but I was very impressed with it. A classic, Platinum Blonde, probably one of the films that Jean Harlow is best remembered for, and I've seen Platinum Blonde before. It's a pretty popular film. There's the old VHS copy of it. Like the younger generation, kind of sort of a social climbing, social class drama. And you can see, I believe it's Robert Williams. Yes, it is Robert Williams, who died not long after production. He is amazing in this film. A shame that he had to pass away so young. He wasn't much older than me, as I am recording this video now anyway, when he got sick and died of, I think, peritonitis or something similar. So that's a real shame, because he's really good in this. Probably the highlight of the film. Harlow isn't given quite as much to do, and Loretta Young playing kind of the other woman, we'll put it that way, as two women vie for Robert Williams' affections, But Platinum Blonde, that's a screwball comedy classic. Not the funniest or the most manic of Capra's films, but certainly setting the stage for the later ones to come. Followed by another double feature, American Madness and the Bitter Tea of General Yen. I always liked The Bitter Tea of General Yen. That was a movie I watched as a teenager when I was getting into Capra's work. And Barbara Stanwyck, again, as a missionary who falls in love with the Chinese warlord. Just for the record, played by Nils Asthur with some makeup on, but nonetheless, he does a pretty good job. There's a really surreal dream sequence where he appears as Nosferatu. I don't know what the deal with that is. It doesn't feel like something Capra would make. But nonetheless, it's a pretty compelling film. Reminds me a lot of things like Shanghai Express. If you like that, you'd probably like this one quite a bit. American Madness actually reminds me a lot of It's a Wonderful Life. This bank president who's so devoted to his depositors and his staff, and the same day he finds out his wife is contemplating an affair is the same day as one of his employees allows a bank robbery to occur to pay off some gambling debts, and naturally all this drama just happens all in one day. And despite some of the contrivances, I found it a really compelling film, and very well directed too, I might add. There's a few scenes in here that don't feel like anything else Capra made. such as the scene where the night watchman is kind of patrolling around the vaults. He knows someone else is in there, but he can't see them. It's a really effective bit. I kind of wish Capra had made a direct horror film. Of course, Arsenic and Old Lace is kind of the closest he got, but pretty interesting stuff. Another double feature for you, Barbara Stanwyck's Forbidden, along with Lady for a Day. I was kind of surprised Lady for a Day ended up here as a double feature, because Lady for a Day was nominated for several Oscars. It was remade by Capra in the 60s as A Pocketful of Miracles. You know, it has a pretty solid following, but I don't know, maybe just the luck of the draw, I guess. Forbidden is the only Barbara Stanwyck one I haven't watched yet, but it does have the most famous line, perhaps in all of pre-code cinema, where Ralph Bellamy tells Barbara Stanwyck after she keeps rebuffing his advances that the longer they know, the harder they yes. Just think about it if you don't get it, but definitely excited to watch that one. It Happened One Night, a movie that needs no introduction. Now, It Happened One Night was, of course, released by Criterion and all that jazz. There's many different versions you can find, but this one looks pretty good to me. Prove that the limb is mightier than the thumb, I guess. Very fun movie. And the inspiration for Spaceballs, I might add. Mr. Deeds Goes to Town. Not as well remembered as some of Capra's other films, despite winning him an Oscar for Best Director. Today, maybe overshadowed by the Adam Sandler remake, but I really like Mr. Deeds Goes to Town. You can doodle while you sit in court. How's that? But Gary Cooper, in one of his best comic performances. Definitely a classic there. Alright, so Lost Horizon. There's a lot we can say about Lost Horizon. I mentioned before reconstructed films and things like that. You know, not all of Capra's work is here, as I said before, but even some of his Columbia work isn't here, between being lost, like Say It with Sables. The 1930 movie The Donovan Affair is not included because although the film footage survives, the soundtrack doesn't, so we're left with a film that's basically silent. I get why that's not here. And another omission was Broadway Bill from 1934, and Broadway Bill was wrapped up in sort of legal disputes and wranglings for many, many years. I was only familiar with it because it's mentioned on the back of the Three Little Pigskins, Three Stooges video as another early appearance of Lucille Ball. So, movies that are partially lost, movies that might be seen as being in very bad taste, like the Matinee Idol, and movies that, you know, maybe there isn't enough to demonstrate, or maybe there's some reason we can't mass produce it or watch it easily like Broadway Bill, but Lost Horizon's kind of none of those. It's all over the place. Based on the wonderful book by James Hilton, Lost Horizon had a difficult production where Capra claimed he personally destroyed the original opening to the film and shifted a lot of stuff around, and then it was cut again after its release, and then it was restored very gradually, and I have several older releases of Lost Horizon on VHS and DVD, and I know some of them use the same basic copy, which is all the surviving film footage and soundtrack, and then plus still photographs to fill in any missing spaces, that sort of thing. And as far as I know, this follows that sort of model, but I think there's been about another minute or two of footage located, restored, and put back in the film, from what I gather. But I'm very excited to watch this particular version of Lost Horizon, which might very well be, after Arsenic and Old Lace, my favorite Capra film. I know that it deals with the concept of a utopian society and the sort of societal implications that that would carry with it, and that not everybody would be happy in a utopia and so on. Kind of setting the stage for my video for next week. Little teaser for you. I love Lost Horizon though. So glad that it's here. Definitely some good stuff. Can't take it with you. Can you play Polly Wolly Doodle on your harmonica for me? Excuse me. That's a good one. Lionel Barrymore, Rochester Anderson, Jean Arthur, great cast there, and some very funny bits. And the last of the feature films from 1939, I believe his last work for Columbia, Mr. Smith goes to Washington. Jefferson Smith is going to filibuster to address corruption in the U.S. Congress. Pretty cool stuff. And again, there's nothing I can say about that movie that hasn't been said by people much smarter than I. And lastly, what I believe is exclusive to this set, at least for the time being, a new documentary film, Frank Capra, Mr. America. I know they claim to have unearthed some previously unheard audio interviews and video recordings and things like that as a little retrospective of his life. I haven't watched it yet. I figured once I watch through everything in this set, this will be the piece de resistance to wrap things up. But definitely exciting. So is it a complete view of Capra's work at Columbia? Not quite. We have a few things missing, but not many. So far, everything I've watched has been in terrific shape, and I can't recommend this set enough. So I'd say if the price is right, go ahead and pick it up. I think you'll be very pleased with it. Please comment your favorite Frank Capra films below, and I'll see you next time. So long!